How is a triathlon different from other athletic events?
Triathlon is a combination of 3 sports: swim, bike or cycling, and running.
You were all India rank holder in tennis.
I started at the age of 11 and I think I was pretty good at it. My serves were really good. If you're like trying to understand the world without understanding yourself, then that can be a real tough place to be
Very
in.
wise words.
Yeah. So the main reason I did an engineering was not because I am a tech person. I 100% knew I don't like coding.
Ironman is one thing. If there's one athletic event in the world that's known because of how difficult it is,
Right.
the ecosystem in India doesn't quite support that, right?
Not really.
I'm sure all of you know someone who is an all-rounder, just good at everything they do. Well, our guest today is the definition of the term all-rounder. But before we get to this very inspiring guest, I would like you all to subscribe to our channel if you're watching this video. Subscribing is free for you, but what it does is it enables us to make good quality content for you. So please subscribe, and if you like this video, if you like our content, please share our video so that it reaches more and more viewers. I am Amrita, and I welcome you to a brand new podcast on the Momcast. Like I mentioned, our guest today is an all-rounder, a triathlete, a multiple times Ironman 70.3 finisher, a model, an influencer, and an entrepreneur with a purpose. Let's find out what makes Aishwarya Jagadish tick. Welcome to the Momcast, Aishwarya.
Thank you so much. And this is my first podcast, so I'm like really thrilled to be here.
Happy to help. But we're glad to have you here. You do so many things, and it's incredibly fascinating to me just to think about it doesn't seem possible that one person is doing all of these things. Because every time you think a model or an influencer, it's a very different personality to that of an athlete or an entrepreneur, right? And you seem to be mingling all of these different worlds into one.
Right.
So I'm sure we are in for a very fascinating podcast. But let's start with you. Let's start with Aishwarya. So tell us a little bit about your growing up days, right? Your background, where you're from. Yeah.
Yes. So I am born and brought up in Bangalore. And my family, my dad is also from Karnataka. My mom is from Andhra, Tirupati. It's a temple town. So I'm a proper South Indian girl, I would say, and an upper middle class family. And when I started off, I think when I was really small, I was quite introverted. So that's how things started. There were a lot of things I would see, feel, hear, but I would not really share. So I'm really excited to, put out my voice here today. So that's great. And with family, I think my parents have been quite protective, quite strict in terms of a lot of things. And I think they've done the best they could with what they've had or with what they've known. But there were also things that I wanted to learn, I wanted to, explore. When you get a chance to, do your own things, there's a lot of scope for failure, mistakes happen, and you learn from them. So I think I wanted to, go out of the box. Most of my thinking right from childhood has been, doing things that were not mediocre or ordinary. So I've always tried, explored things in that way. And
so you've always had a drive to excel, in whatever you did, you wanted to be good at it.
Yes, right? Yes. Even through childhood, I think, like in terms of school, right? So I thought I was really excited about, the subjects, maybe physics, chemistry, math. But honestly, it was not really the subjects. It was just the competitiveness inside me. And I just really wanted to be the school topper or the class topper. And that's what really motivated me across all disciplines. Like in school, I was into sport. I wanted to be the best in track and field. I was into dance. I was into dance outside of school as well. I've done dance with Shamak Davar. So there were things that I tried to do outside school. And then tennis was something that I picked up around the age of 10, 11. So I've been hitting the gym since that time. So it's almost like 18 years. So I've always wanted to try different things and really see what I'm good at. I've always had that curiosity and drive and competitiveness inside me. And when you're really like focused and you don't have too many distractions around you, I think that's what happens.
Did being an introvert help in reducing the distractions also? Because you were more like focused internally on what you wanted to do and stuff you wanted to explore, and so all the other distractions that you might have had if you were more outgoing did not come in the way, sort of.
You can say that's partially true. A reason why my mom agreed to put me into tennis classes, which were quite expensive at that time, was the reason that she gave is, that'll keep you away from all the distractions if, just randomly going out with friends or movies so that was the reason that she gave. And when I look at it now, I think that was a smart thing to do because I've picked up so much from tennis and it really added to me as a school kid as well because I didn't really have to study that hard to top the class in all the years because I had that kind of focus, the concentration that was required. I had a good visual memory and all of that. So it was just like going to class, just learning from it, and then going to the exam and giving the exams. And I didn't have to put a lot of effort outside that. And it helped because I could just do my tennis classes outside that and I would just go to school. Because now if you see, there is so much beyond school for studies, like you see the coaching classes and
Yes,
from the age of,
yes.
I think when you're in fourth grade, the coaching classes start. So yeah, I don't think I would have sustained that or tuitions and coaching classes. So I'm happy the combination of sport, dance, drama, whatever it was, it really just shaped me in different ways.
Wow. So a lot of people would say that, you doing so many things would have taken away from your social life as a child, which also is considered quite important so that you kind of, how do you put it, like round up your personality. You're able to also kind of engage with others and all. But you have a very different view on it. You think that this was the best for who you were. It was the
Right.
best way to approach life for you, right?
Yes, it was not the best way because as an introvert, a lot of things you cannot express. As in, if things go right, then it's amazing. But if things don't go right, then you have a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions that you just keep it to yourself and you really don't know how to, resolve it or heal with it. And I also had a different phase. I mean, I was introverted up till the age of 16, but from 16 to like 20, I was completely extroverted. So I desperately wanted that shift, which happened a little bit by force. I put a lot of conscious thought into it. So if you listen or hear stories of my friends in college days, they would not resonate with my introvertedness. Or even now, I think nobody would resonate with that person that I was before. So I went all out into, being more social and all of that. But now that I've moved from that, I'm not extremely extroverted right now. So I like the kind of balance in between both.
You're an ambivert now.
Yeah. So
You're
I
in the
like to
middle.
talk when I need to. I like to listen when I don't have to talk. And sometimes, there's that balance
Just that
really
balance.
helps. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad that you said that. Because introvert and extrovert, these terms are used so loosely by people to make judgments.
Right.
Right? So loosely. And they're used as labels. Again, these days, like everything can be used as a label, including these terms. And people are like, if you're an introvert, that's your entire personality. Oh, I'm an introvert. Introverted with cats, like that's your entire personality. Or if you're an extrovert, then that's your entire personality.
Right.
That you're like a people person, you're a people pleaser. And I've always believed that it's a range, it's a spectrum. And in life, in different phases of your life, if you allow yourself to grow and to to learn and to grow and to actually really experience different things, you would often find yourselves changing into different people,
Right.
sometimes more introverted, sometimes less. And you realize it's a range. And I kind of think most people don't let themselves really experience life that much.
Yes.
And so they are like limited to one side of the spectrum only. But because you, of course, are doing so many things, you find the need to sometimes be introverted and sometimes be extroverted. And you find that you are able to do both.
Yes. So I think
Right.
with times, I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. So I've changed a lot. And also, like with terms of all the things that I've done, there's so many new things. But with time, I have always wanted to focus on, trying out as many things as I want in as maybe in my 20s, so that now I have a set of few things that I really like and I'm really passionate about, and I figured those things out. And now I can put all my energy, all my focus, and everything I have into those specific areas and like master the craft. But I wouldn't really want to do the other way around where, you're like stuck in one thread or one trajectory for a long period of time. And then you're like in your 30s or 40s, and then you're like, this concept of maybe midlife crisis. I don't want to label it, but there is this identity crisis that a lot of people have because you're pushed into something, you do that for a long time, and then you're like, okay, what do I really want? And then they start exploring a lot of different things, and then you try to figure out, but okay, so I've always wanted to do the other way. The reason I tried so many things, even in the last 5 years, I've tried a lot of things. And in the last 1.5 years or so, I have actually stuck to the same things. And now I know for the next 10 years or 15 years,
This
I'm
is
going
what
to do
you'll
the
be doing.
same thing that I've decided on. And I know exactly what are the things I'm good at, what are the things I need to improve, and what is that really is my calling. So I've figured that I can feel those things very differently now. And it takes time, it takes experience across different spectrum of things, and then you can figure. Because if you're just exposed to one thing, then you just don't know because you've never tried the other things. So
yes.
it's
Another thing that I'm going to say like so early in this podcast, like second question itself, but again, so glad that you said that, right? Because what you mentioned as the trajectory that you wanted to avoid, where you've been stuck doing the same thing for a long time, then you come to a point where you're having an identity crisis, is the reality for so many people. Is the reality for so many people. It's almost a normal for so many people, and that's scary, right?
Yes.
Because why would anybody want to have that sort of a life? But that's what life is for most people. To be able to do what you've done is a win for both yourself and your parents, right?
Right.
Because at this young age, you are able to convey your experience in a manner, right, which anybody who's listening to this is going to take that away. I hope they take that away.
Right.
That this is kind of the right order of doing things, that explore. Just because you're 20 something and you've cleared your college doesn't mean you need to get a job and then do that job for the next 40 years. Right? Like if you enjoy it, if you are one of those lucky privileged people that I hope you are, who ends up finding their calling straight out of college and are happy to do that, please do it. Right? But for most people, that's not the case. And so being able to explore, not having the fear of, what will happen if I explore and if I don't do this. Right? It's so important.
I think that's the most important thing. What I would think of is my best quality is that I'm not really scared to fail. So the only reason where you stick to something is because that is your comfort zone. You've been, okay, let's take engineering. So you've been doing that 4 years, so you've done that, and then the next thing is either an MS or a master's or a job. So it's a very structured path that if you want to break away from that path, it would be going out of your comfort zone, and there are higher chances that you fail, and it's a higher risk. So it's natural for you to do the same things that everyone around you is doing.
Yes.
So breaking away needs a lot of courage, but more than that, you should be open to failing.
Yeah. But I always say that the higher the risk, the higher the rewards.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. The higher also the chances of failure.
Yes.
Yeah. But also the higher possibility of rewards, right? So again, yeah, very, very important thing that you've mentioned there. So I'll go back to where it all began for you, your childhood, right? And your parents clearly played such an important role in what you did and how you excelled in your academics as well as in your sports. And so looking back now, as a child, I don't know if you were thinking like this, but as an adult now, do you look back and you feel, oh, my parents were like, their parenting was different from the parenting of, say, others around you, right? Was there anything different about the way they?
Yeah, so I was brought up very, very protected. I would
Hmm.
not get to go anywhere without supervision. The
Hmm.
dressing, the hair, I was always in braids. So this is something different. So I've been brought up like that. And
Hmm.
what they did, but was they were always very supportive. But that is also because I was pretty good at academics. So they were okay. So she's doing well in school. So, that's not a concern that they would have. So they're open to, okay, she also wants to do this and it's not affecting her studies. So they were open to, letting me go to sport. And also they were also very passionate about, the kind of sport. My mom really believes that sportsmen have a lot of respect compared to other professions. They're highly respected. So the kind of values that they thought sport would add would really help me, because even till today, they have continuously supported me with sport and all my endeavors, whatever I've tried. And I've tried a lot of different things. Like even 2 years back, I went to Mumbai. I tried out some acting courses. I have done some projects. So yeah, that's that's a brave
Interesting.
connect. So I've
Yeah.
got some casting projects, but I quickly realized acting is not something that I wanted to 100% pursue. But I'm okay doing modeling. So I have been a person who can quickly figure out if something's for
Yeah.
me or not. And even with corporate, I think that was the same thing. In about a year or two, I figured this is not my cup
Not
of
for
tea,
you.
so I quit. So they have some faith. I think with time, they've figured that, okay, she can manage a few things on her own. And yeah, I've been a bit of a rebel, to be very honest. I think from the age of 16 onwards, I have tried out different things. I went to like a 2-3 week trip to Ladakh on a bike. So that's pretty risky. And I don't think any parent who's like from a South Indian background will be like, okay, you're a 18-year-old, I'll give you enough money, just go for a bike trip to Ladakh. I think that's not gonna happen.
Jai Aishwarya,
Yes.
जी ले अपनी जिंदगी.
Yeah, so I think so I've done a lot of these things, and I think maybe with time they've also seen that I go and I do come back. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
You've
it
gained
helps.
their trust.
Maybe, and maybe
Yeah.
also, okay, she definitely she's someone who will do what she wants to. If I set my mind onto something, I will 100% make sure that it's done. So that's the kind of quality. And if I want something, I will go to the end of the world to make sure I get it. So those are the qualities I've had. And yeah, I think with time, they've
I
also
love that
accepted
you.
it.
I'm sorry I'm pausing you, but I love that you own this side of you. This is you, right? It's not like there are 25 yous, right?
Yes.
But I love that you speak so candidly about being so competitive,
Right.
about being someone who's a go-getter, about being someone who will make sure that they see through whatever they start, about being rebellious, about being a boss babe in general.
Yes.
Because those qualities in a woman, even though women these days aspire to be like that, those are not celebrated in society.
Yes, that's true.
They're not celebrated in society, right? Again, I don't need to give examples of that, because we've seen enough examples of that around. Like, if you're somebody who's a strong woman, strong female characters are often not main characters.
Right.
Right? Strong female characters are often supportive characters in cinema as well. Things are changing, of course, but the little bit of change in cinema hasn't necessarily replicated in real life.
Yes, it takes a lot. I think it's hard to explain it as well, but I think it takes a lot. Like even in my sport, for example, let me take a very specific example. So there's an event called Ironman 70.3 Goa. So that's the only Ironman event in India. And if you see the last year's numbers, there were 35 women and thousands, in terms of thousands of men. So if you can see the ratio, right? It's a massive difference.
Insane.
Yes. So it shows like kind of the exposure. There's a lot of barriers that women have to go against, and it's not like I'm a feminist, to be honest, but I do agree that the kind of support system and the kind of accessibilities needs to be a slightly different, and it's tough, but I'm hoping that people get there. And that's one of the reasons that I've tried to put out content of everything I do. So just to inspire, there are a lot of girls who come back and say, I saw you doing this and I took up this. So that's a really inspiring thing for me as well. And if that happens and it grows exponentially, I think with time, the numbers should rise. And girls are more fearless these days. They are taking up things.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
They absolutely
yeah, it'll take time for the society and the culture to really change, but I hope it happens.
It will happen. It will definitely happen. And to have, a triathlete such as yourself sitting and talking about these qualities is going to really help quite a lot of people whoever watches this, whoever sees you talking about these qualities, like in a very normal manner. Like, we're not sitting here glamorizing something or vilifying something else, right? This is a normal discussion. This is who you are, and it's okay to be right,
I think
go-getter.
It's been so hard to be an authentic self. Like when you're not a people pleaser and you want to be honest and authentic, it's a very tough space. Like even if I open LinkedIn right now, there's so much going on, but I've known the backstory of the same thing, and then you're like, okay, is it really honest? Are people actually saying the right things or actually being grateful for different things? So it's like bringing out the honest, authentic version of you is so difficult, and you don't know if you're going to be accepted or validated. And it doesn't matter. In my case, I'm just honest because I like how it is, and it is important for me. But integrity is not a very appreciated factor in every business.
It's not. You have to sugarcoat yourself.
Yes.
To appear, you have to appear a certain way. Like, even if you are a tough as nails person inside, on the top, you would have to have that people-pleasing mask on, right? So that you don't rub people the wrong way.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though, and people are not going to be happy when they hear this, because people don't like to accept that women are conditioned to be this way.
Right.
They don't accept that women always have a mask on. Right. They don't. Right? Yes. And often women themselves forget that they have a mask on because they're so used to this.
Yeah.
We're so used to having our people-pleasing mask on out in the public that we forget that that's not us.
Yes. And you're usually like nature to be a bit more emotional, nurturing, and all of that.
Yeah.
So you don't want to really disappoint, because that's going to hurt me more than probably them.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that too.
So I think I've had a lot of these things. It takes a good amount of time to understand how the world operates, how you have to stand, and these are things that's not taught in school. Education system does not really teach you things like how to say no in a workplace. No, I cannot take any more work, I already have enough on my plate. So I never knew these things back at work. I didn't have a 9 to 5. I think I was going at 9 and I would finish at 1 or 2. So it's
relatable.
Yeah, it is insane. And after a point, you're like tired, you're burnt out, you've lost passion, you've lost everything you were like motivated to. You don't want to wake up and go for it. It's sad. With time you lose yourself and your identity. And
yeah. This is the reason workplace is tougher on women, because we don't really know how to set boundaries.
Yes.
We never learned, nobody taught us. Yes. And so the ones who do excel have to become harder and tougher than even their counterparts are.
Right.
And then that and then people then kind of twist that into a negative thing,
Yes.
right?
So finding
yeah.
that balance in between is a very thin line.
Yeah. I'm glad you've been able to achieve some sort of balance. You're also, I mean, you're also relatively young to have been able to achieve that, which is a testament to the fact that you're a very fast learner.
Yes.
Clearly.
Yes, clearly.
And I'm glad you said yes clearly to that.
Yeah, that's something I've figured out. And I think it's like the way my brain operates. It works at a pace, I think it's way faster than people in general. So that's a pro and a con is what I figured. Pro in one way where you put anything across to me, any tool in tech or anything, I learn it very, very quickly. But again, if you put something like clutter, chaos, traffic into it, it kind of, percolates so quickly in my brain and I cannot handle it anymore.
You get overwhelmed.
So, yeah, I get overwhelmed and it's insane. So that's one of the reasons I just don't enter the city. I've told about this. I just stay away from chaos as much as possible. Yeah. So
you like your brain to be a clutter-free, ordered space.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it would not be possible to be this authentic self. If your brain is a muddle, how are you going to be this, very clear person on the outside?
Yes, exactly. Right? That's why I like to really just put away everything, whatever distractions. I really want to do deep work. So whatever I'm doing, I'm so lost in it that sometimes I'm clueless about what's happening outside. If I'm like doing anything, I'm like so focused. It's a little insane because if you put me in like a movie theater and you give me a test there or you ask me to study something, I will be able to do it. So I can like hyper focus. So it's an insane thing that I've realized with time. I used to do it just on a normal note, but when people got to know this, they're like, okay, that's not normal.
That's a very interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. We should talk about that later because that's the word hyperfocus is something I've heard for the second time today. We'll talk about that. But this is so refreshing to have this kind of a conversation because often being self-assured and being self-aware comes out as arrogant, right? People are like, if you're self-aware, they only expect you to say negative things about yourself, your weaknesses, because you're aware of your weaknesses. So being self-aware almost always means that you're aware of your weaknesses. But of course, it should also mean that you're aware of your strengths.
Yes.
But then if you are, you don't usually talk about your strengths because it comes out as arrogant.
Yeah.
Right? So to be able to accept your strengths, I feel these days is more gutsy than being able to talk about your weaknesses. Everybody's talking about their weaknesses now. Right? This is wrong with me. That is wrong with me. And come on, that also takes strength, really. No judgment here, honestly. But to be able to talk about your strengths with the same candor and honesty, it's I think very rare.
It's both mine, the strength, the weakness. It's all mine. And it took me a lot to actually figure out, okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. And a lot of times it's not your success that really helps you see what is your strength and weakness. It's your mistakes, it's your failures that really help you. So I've been through all of these things and relatively quickly I try to, learn from them. And it helps to slowly understand yourself first, because if you're like trying to understand the world without understanding yourself, then that can be a real tough place to be
Very
in.
Wise words.
Yeah. So just focus on understanding yourself first, how your place, what makes you tick.
What makes you tick?
Yeah, what is that you can learn and improve. So I'm inspired by everything around me, like every block, the ocean I see. So that's why I like, going around places, traveling, learning from them. It really helps to just go out there and do these things because there's so much learning, there's so much scope that you would not like really see when you're doing exactly the same thing every single day.
So let's go back to your childhood for a bit and come to a point where you made a momentous, very important decision. You were all in a rank holder in tennis, from what I understand, right?
Right. So I used to play tennis. I started at the age of 11 and I used to play at an academy called the Mahesh Bhupati Tennis Academy. And at that time, it was one of the most popular ones for tennis. And I think I played it for about 6 years. So I had a chance to go across different places and play tennis at like a national level. And I think I was pretty good at it. My serves were really good. And Mahesh Bhupati's dad, Krishna Bhupati sir, so he was really fond of my serves and my game and all of that. But so there is this time, the age of 16 that comes, right? So that's the crucial time when you're 10th boards, and then you have another interesting career of tennis or sports. So you're not very sure which one to go for. And I think at that time I didn't really have that kind of mindset, not in terms of me, but I think maybe some mentorship or some support would have really helped. And I don't know which one would work. And I was not very sure if tennis would give me the career that I am looking for. Because in school, I was already like in 10th, I was the school topper for my and my class topper. So I was like, okay, that is something pretty sure. Like, if you're doing really well in academics, then you will definitely have a career. But I don't know about tennis. And except I think Sania Mirza, there's nobody else who can really, who's really someone you can draw your inspiration from. So I was not sure. And I was like, okay, let me change my route and come back with, yeah.
Yeah, but that must have been tough, right? Because if you were doing so well in tennis, clearly you would have enjoyed that too, right? So was it tough to then choose academics, or was it for you? It was very practical decision at that point.
It was not very practical. I wanted to make a decision because I wanted to choose one line. And at that time, actually, I chose to go to an international school, and I was boarding there. So my 11th and 12th is a different syllabus and a different, and I went to a boarding school called Canadian International. I got to play a little bit of tennis there, but nothing at a professional level. But coming back, so just having to stick on, and I was not sure if I could really make it in tennis. You have that fear inside you, and at that time I didn't have anybody to dissipate that fear. And my parents were like, they would leave it up to me. And Krishna Bhupati sir, when I spoke to him, he said, I think you really have to stay. And looking back, I was really scared. I was not sure if this is for me. And
Yeah.
I think sport comes back. So again, I've come back into sports, so I'm happy. But reflecting back, that's one of my biggest regrets. That's the only regret I would say, that I quit tennis. That was really good. I was everything that tennis requires. I love the style of the game, the way the sport is. It's an individual game, and I would thrive on it. And I was good with the serves. My parents are supporting with respect to the travel, with respect to the coaching and all of that. And it just was really good. I was very agile, and on an athletic level, it just really worked for me. But I think, yeah, that's one
That
of
time you
the...
needed someone to show a bit more faith and push you a bit more,
Yes, I think
right?
that's where the sports psychology concept comes in, which is picking up in the
Mm.
recent years, where you have psychologists working with the athletes and then, helping them embrace failures. Because in sport, if you see, you can see failures live, as in, you won or lost. But if you see in other areas, like in a job or something, it's very hard to like clearly say I've failed or I've succeeded.
I've
It's
succeeded.
kind of rare. When sport, you have to take it.
Yeah.
It's on your face.
Yeah.
So in that way, sport is a bit harder to understand. It needs a lot more resilience, a lot more things on a day-to-day level to show up, and also
It
on the
does.
tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there were a lot of other things, like in terms of my coaching itself. So there were a few coaches who told me, I should have been at the international level by now, and I'm 16 at that time. So you should have already played internationally, and you should have represented India and all of that. And I was not doing that. Obviously, you have commitments in terms of school and tennis. I was already doing a lot of things. Like, I've given an exam after a tennis tournament. Like, I've played from 6 to 8 in the morning, and I've come and given exams from 9 to 12. So I have tried to juggle it the best I could.
The best you could.
Yes,
Yeah.
but at an international level would require a different level, because tennis is an individual sport. So it's not a team sport where you have support from a team, right? So you have to fund everything. If it's an international tournament, you have to fund it all across on your own. And you do get paid well if you're winning the tournaments, but it takes time to be able to, come to that kind
Yeah.
of stature.
So there was a lot. That would have meant it's difficult for a 16-year-old to make that kind of a decision.
Yes. And yeah, I was like, okay, let's just take the safe route, and what's the worst that could happen with academics? Yeah, but yes.
Spoken too soon. Or thought too soon at that point. Yeah. Okay. So but since you were already pretty good at academics, it's not like you were taking something up which you were not good at. You were
Right.
good at academics, which would have made the decision tougher, I believe, right? Like
Yes.
if there was a clear choice,
Yes.
so this is something in which I'm good and this is something at which I'm not good,
Yes.
it would have been easier to make that decision.
Right. So there's this concept called problem of plenty. So when you're able to do a lot of things very well, then it becomes very hard to pick a specific thing and try to master it. So it takes you time and maybe like some regrets like this to really figure out and say, okay, this is what I really want to do. So because I've had this regret in the past, now I know that, whatever comes in my way of triathlons or the Ironmans that I'm pursuing, I know I don't want to fall for it because I don't want a second time have that regret.
Right.
So it takes you some time to figure out.
Yeah. So you went the academic route and you ended up in the 9 to 5 jobs, right? And you worked at Goldman Sachs. You worked at multinational firms, right? We've talked a little bit about that experience. How let's go into it a little bit more.
Yes.
Right. So how was that for you?
Got it. So I didn't really have to struggle too much to get into these firms, to be plain honest. The most important thing they look at was presentation skills, communication skills, a little bit of technology and aptitude. My aptitude was always good because math and science came very natural to me, and so I just gave 2 interviews. One was for Goldman Sachs, one was for Deloitte. I got through both of them. So Goldman was a summer employment for about 5 months and with a potential, conversion. And with Deloitte, it was a full-time role. So I had 2 options again. If I want to take Goldman, I can take that, or I can, quit and change to Deloitte after college gets over. So the final year of college, in the last semester, I did the internship with Goldman. And to be honest, like I was always very brand conscious. Like I've always felt that if you take a very good brand, you have good quality and things around it will be very sorted out. So I went for that. I thought, okay, my work here will be good. It'll add to my resume, and it'll really help me push forward. And maybe 2 years later, I will look back and maybe do an MBA. So the main reason I did an engineering was not because I am a tech person. I 100% knew I don't like coding. That was something that I knew from a very young age. I've always been very entrepreneurial from a young age. I think that kind of is usually a lot of people who are athletic also have very high ambitions, and they're also, some of them are quite entrepreneurial. It comes a bit hand in hand is what I feel. The concept of athletics also adds to like the leadership qualities. It's very, very similar. So I've always had this drive to have my own brands, own set of firms. This is at a pretty young age, maybe 15, 16. I've always wanted to do this. So I thought, okay, so the best route that I know of is do an engineering and do an MBA. And you do an MBA, okay, so that's the closest you can get to starting your own business. So that's the only reason I did engineering. And after that, they say you need 2 years experience to get a good MBA college. So I was like, okay, let me do that. So that was the only reason I went there, and I wanted good brand names for my CV to look good. But going there was not
I love how honest you are about your purposes.
Right.
I was doing this because of this. I was doing this because I had absolutely no interest in doing this, but I was building to a bigger purpose and a bigger vision.
Yeah, I just needed that degree. That's it.
I like that you had the foresight to think 5 steps ahead.
Right.
That.
I think, I'm a big picture person. And I like to work in the present, but I like to have that
plan
big
for the
picture.
future.
Yeah.
So nobody was hiring you. You were getting like hired because you wanted to build your resume.
Yeah, exactly. So I went to exactly just 2 of those interviews. I gave them, and I got through. And yes, going from there, and it was not very easy. Like in Goldman, I think there were about 2,000, 3,000 people who gave the aptitude test, and 10 were selected. So it was a pretty tough one to get through. But I'm very confident in a few things. I know that, okay, if I'm trying this, and there are some things that I know, okay, I'm able to get that, and I just go ahead and do it. Anyways, coming back. So the brand image didn't really reflect the actual work there, and I felt that I'm better than this in a lot of areas. So being very entrepreneurial, the thing is you want to like create, you want to build, you want to innovate, you want to do things out of the normal ways that things are being done. But when you go to a few places when it's structured and there's a process, I liked how things were in process. I learned about process over there. But after a point of time, it gets boring and monotonous, and there's nothing much you can ideate or innovate or create there because you're just expected to just refine, customize, and do the same things. And I think it got boring. And once it gets boring, and there's no magic left, like.
What can you do there?
Yes, what can you do there?
What can you
You're not
do?
needed. You're replaceable, and that word really stuck to me.
You're replaceable.
Yes, you're replaceable, and
that
then
was
what's the
not your
point?
experience in life till then, right?
Yes, exactly. And I thought I'm special and I can create really great things, and here I am being replaceable, and it just takes like one day to get someone else in your place and whom they feel that is better than you. And yeah, so there were things like that, and I tried really hard. It's like I tried really hard to fit in, I think, but it just never worked out because maybe
it
it was
wasn't for
meant.
you.
It wasn't for
for
me,
you.
yeah, and it worked out for the better that I didn't fit in.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
Again, 100 points for the clarity of thought.
Right.
Not that you need it, but this is something that, see, there's such a stigma around quitting, right?
Right.
So much stigma around quitting. People stick out at things they absolutely hate, they absolutely loathe. Some people do that because, of course, they need it. And,
Right.
everybody has their journey and you do what you have to do. But oftentimes people stick out at things even when they don't really need to because they are not quitters.
Right.
Right? Which for me is such a damaging mindset.
I think quitting is also like a winning aspect in a different way, because if you don't quit something that's not working for you, you're hammering in a direction that's not right for you, then you're going the wrong way, right? So it's good to like pivot and quit and find the direction that works.
That works.
And that is important to be actually successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like why always you push yourself to go against the flow, to go against the stream, when you could go with the flow and do something for yourself?
Yes. And if you see, like, if you've found your calling, or if something's actually that you're destined to do, then things just magically just weave out and work in your favor. And if you're like not in that path, things just don't work out. It just keeps going bad to worse to disastrous with time, I guess.
Yeah, interesting. So you did the 9 to 5 and and you decided that it was not for you. But then how did you get into triathlons? When did you run your first triathlon? Because earlier you were into tennis, right? So when did you decide? Did it come to you immediately? Okay, that I'm not doing this, so let me go back to my first love. Let me go back to sports, right? Or did it take you some time to figure out your next steps?
Good. Even then, I never wanted to be anything close to an athlete. Entrepreneur, yes. Something related to fitness and health is what I wanted to focus on.
Right.
And it was also like the COVID phase where health was one of the major segments where everyone was focusing on. But that being said, athlete was something that I never crossed my mind, because I was always accustomed to sports. For example, tennis or cricket or badminton. You need to be there from a young age. So your peak for that sport is almost like 20 and you've peaked for that sport. So when you're already crossed that peak age, you really can't enter into sports as a professional. So it never crossed my mind that I would take up sport that seriously. But I would engage in other activities that would help me stay fit, like maybe cult and some fitness classes and all of that. And how triathlons happened was really weird. There was a friend of mine in college, and he actually signed up for Ironman Goa. That was the first time it was happening in India. So that was 2019. And he asked me over a 4-hour or a 3-hour conversation saying, you really have to sign up for this. I was like, there's no way on the earth that I would do something for 6 hours. The only thing I would do for something for 6 hours is sleep. Yeah. So no chance. Before that, I was doing some runs. Even during my Deloitte days, I was running up to like 5K. I've done the Pinkathon where I actually came first. So I was trying to fit in the run and all that, and I didn't have much of an input from my end. I would just like show up for the runs, and I think I had an athletic background, so the podiums were fun, and it was also pretty competitive, right? I was somewhere deriving that competitive energy.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this sounds fun, but I was like, I'm not doing anything close to an Ironman, but I can look at the shorter distances. So there was an event in Dravid Padukone Academy, and they had hosted like a community triathlon. I was like, okay, what I can come and volunteer. Let me see what this sport is about, what's the hype. And in India, it's not even like well known. Nobody knows what a triathlon is. And they know Ironman a little bit, and they connected back to Milind Soman. So he is like
the poster boy for
Ironman, the poster boy for all of this. Yeah, so I was like, okay, so I went over there, and that sport was like pretty thrilling. So I've done a bit of swimming back as a child when I used to, do recovery swimming after tennis. So I have a bit of swimming base. I loved cycling as a kid. I loved cycling, bikes. All of these have been fantasies. I love the thrill of speed. So yeah, so I picked up, and I was also doing running anyways. So I was like, okay, I can do all three of these, and I'm not really scared of water. I don't have these panic issues. Even if you put me in the ocean, I was very comfortable. Even the first time I went for an ocean swim, I was like pretty comfortable. So I knew, okay, this is something that's interesting. And in that event, I was just pacing a few other athletes, and the organizers there were like, okay, I think you need to like sign up and you need to try this. So that's when I signed up. I got my first bike in Feb 2020. That was also a very funny incident where I actually went for another bike. It was a Scott, a regular bike. And there was this other bike, which was carbon framed, a Ridley Noah. So usually a carbon frame bike is minimum 2 lakhs. And funnily, I got this bike for just 85,000, and it was my size. It was the only piece that was there. And it was just like, that was meant for me.
That was meant for you.
Yeah. The other bike was already assembled, and yeah, so that was like a final call between that and this, and it's interesting. Like, that's what I said. Magically things work for you with time. So I got that bike, and that's been the life-changing moment. I love the bike. It's amazing. Like, cycling is even more fun than running, and I never thought of it. So yeah, that's when cycling entered my life, and slowly I did like one event where I came second in the first event I did. And then I did the nationals. It was in Dhanushkodi. The events are not very structured in India, the short distance events, because they don't have the kind of funding that's required.
Right.
And we had it in Dhanushkodi, and I got a bronze there. So that was like a nationals open event.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was the selections for Commonwealth Games. So that was one of the things. That was one of the probables for the Commonwealth Games for triathlon. Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't take that through that side because of a lot of factors. One being the way it is structured. It's not very safe. The events were not really that safe. The events are not very frequent or planned in advance. So you don't really know the calendar, just a week or maybe a month or two in advance they tell you. But whereas in the Ironman side, you can plan it for the whole year. You know the event is happening on June 2nd, a year before.
Right.
So that's how it is. It's more organized, more planned. But obviously, the short course is more planned and organized in other parts of the world. So that's the
But not
route to
in
the
India.
Olympics. Yes. Yeah. So I
Hmm.
initially considered it because, again, in triathlon, the major reason I chose the sport is, again, very strategic, I would say. The average age of the Olympics in women is 33. So the lady who won the Olympics is 33. So you don't really do that well in other sports at this age. But this is a
Hmm.
sport which where people peak in
In
a
their
later
30s.
stage, at least currently.
Hmm.
I think with generations, the younger athletes will pick up, but
Hmm.
that's going to take time. So I thought, okay, this is where I can, go a little more professional, or maybe try getting back my vibe of representing the country. So that was the concept, and I was like, okay, let me really try the sport. And yeah, it's been working really well, not just in terms of representing or competing and all of that, but it really helps you build your correct character. It builds you as a person. There's so much that you learn out of doing sport, which I never thought I would. It gave me the kind of people I really wanted to meet. So most of the people here, like at least my training partner, that he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. No, you don't find people of that
It's
nature.
rare
Yeah,
now.
very calm, composed, disciplined, high work ethic, and just very focused, just doing the things, because you don't have the energy to do random things. You can work and you can train. If you want to do anything beyond that, you have to sacrifice one of these things.
You're finding your kind
Yes,
of people. You're finding your
yeah,
tribe.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I like that kind of
Hmm.
energy where, the kind of people were great, and the sport also helps you build in terms of the kind of resilience you have. You have to be able to make decisions on the spot. So if you see, there's a very nice parallel between this and leadership qualities, because even when you're like a leader or an entrepreneur and the founder of a company, you need to make quick decisions. You need to be able to embrace failure. You need to be able to know when to quit, when to actually push yourself. You need to have resilience. And there are a lot of similarities: the work ethic, discipline, and the one difference with sport and building a company is that in sport you are the product, you're building yourself. This is in
Hmm.
a company, you're building the company. So that's
Yeah.
the small difference, but otherwise concepts are very, very similar. And I think that's what really draws me to triathlon. And it's been a great experience, I think, all the way till now. And one more important aspect is it also adds all the other things I like. One is travel, one is food. And yes, I've been able to do so much of it. It's great because I love to eat, and when you train so much, you can eat a lot. And yeah, so with all these races happening all across the world, I went to Europe, my first Europe trip last year. Went to Vietnam twice, and in the next coming few months, we're going to Europe, Australia, and probably more. So there's so much of travel that's like imbibed in it, and it's super amazing. And I think that's what really like makes it. And even if I'm not like paid for doing the sport at this point, I would like still want to do this. And I think that's what's really important. If you take the finance aspect of anything, would you really want to do what you're doing? That would
Hmm.
really define a lot of aspects.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That would. I love how joyful, clearly talking about
Yes.
triathlons and your journey makes you, which goes to
Yeah,
show that
it's
you
great.
are absolutely on the right path.
Yes.
Yeah. And I loved how, yeah, and I loved your reasoning behind why you enjoy triathlon. One of the reasons is
Yes.
that you get to eat whatever you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't eat whatever I want to, but almost whatever I like, I still eat. Like, I love desserts as well. So I still go ahead and eat it. Like, maybe if you're like completely on a very important race, maybe you can avoid it for 2, 3 weeks. But otherwise, naturally, everything we consume, even during our training, is like we have Snickers while riding. We have gels, which are again like high carbs or high sugar. So you take these to actually build your performance. So it's okay. It's not like I've never really gained weight. In the last 10 years, I'm like the same weight. And I've been training at this level, and whatever I eat, it doesn't change. So it gives me that beautiful combination. I think, yeah,
That
everyone.
enviable combination.
Yes.
Yes. Love that. Love that for you. So, you talked about a very important aspect there of what Clearly, you're very strategic. I would really like the people who watch this to take this away from the podcast as well, because in our country, again, so many things, and probably not just in our country. I wouldn't know enough to comment on other countries and about other cultures, but human experience, you often do things because others are doing them,
Right.
right? And so even when people choose sports, decide sports, like you mentioned, your cricket, football, hockey, and tennis, and that's that. And people wouldn't look beyond it. But the way you looked at it, because you wanted to, you loved sports, and you could see an opportunity in being a triathlete, and you took it, and this was a strategic move.
Right.
So the fact that you can also do this, be
Right.
strategic about choosing a career in sports, doesn't
Right.
have to be a 9 to 5 career, is something that again, people should, I hope they take that away from
Yeah, I think
this too.
whatever you choose, you've got to be an intellectual person and strategic to really make it to the top 1 to 5%. If you see anybody, even in sport, if you see the people who perform really well, they're very intellectual and smart. So they're very strategic about things. They have a calm and collected mind. They have the kind of mindset that's needed to be a champion. So it's very similar across different people are different. Obviously, they have their own personalities,
Yes.
but a few of these things have to be pretty strategic to actually progress.
These are transferable skills
Yes,
that would
yes.
take you to the top in any field.
Exactly. Yes. You see,
Yes.
maybe there's a reference to maybe Priyanka Chopra. She's very good as an actor, and she would do really well as an entrepreneur as well. Just having those skills, right? Having the kind of team building skills, working with people, having the kind of communication skills that you need, and even beyond that, the way you approach things, how you're open to learning and failing and all of that. I think everyone goes through it, and it's the same qualities across different disciplines.
Yes, that is so true. Yeah. Let's do this. How do we define, or rather, please explain triathlons to somebody who does not know what exactly, how is a triathlon different from other athletic events?
Right. So a triathlon is a combination of 3 sports, or you could say 3 disciplines, and it's all done together. So the 3 disciplines are swim, bike or cycling, and running. And in a triathlon, you do all of them back to back, one after the other together. And there are 2 forms of triathlon. One is the short distance, where the distances are shorter, and the long distance, obviously, the distances are longer. And in the long distance version, it's usually termed, or most people know it as Ironmans. So, because there's a brand that actually hosts these longer format triathlons. And when you take the shorter format triathlons, let's take the Olympic distance, for example. It's called the Olympic distance because that's the distance that's there in the Olympics. And it's about 1.5 kilometers of swim. It's about 40 kilometers of cycling, and it's about 10 kilometers of running. So this is the standard one that's there in the Olympics. Versus the longer distance one, if you take the half or the 70.3 version of an Ironman, it's about 1.9 kilometers of swim, 90 kilometers of cycling, and 21.1 of run.
So almost the
Yes.
double.
Almost. It's not exactly the double, but the half Ironman is like 1/2 of the full Ironman. So that is exactly double of it.
Right.
So yeah, just I think in India, just having to complete these distances, the long distances, is a feat in itself. So we haven't gotten really into the competing part of it. We're still at the completing part of it.
Yes.
So, and there's no triathlete in the Olympics from India, and there is no professional triathlete in the long distance either from India.
Right.
So these are sports which are mostly dominated by the Europeans, the Americans, yeah, and British. So it's mostly around these countries, but yeah, it's slowly picking up pace in our country as well, and people are getting a hang of it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Ironman ecosystem. You mentioned that Ironman 70.3 is exactly the half of Ironman. And then we also have the Ironman World Championships, right? And then you do Ironman 70.3. You sometimes you qualify from them to the World Cup,
Correct.
right? And then there are these different, even the Ironman, there are different categories, right? There are age groups, there's professional. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Right. So you have a lot of these Ironman 70.3 events across the world. So what you can do is you pick one of these events and you finish it. And if you come in the first three positions in your age group, so an age group is like 18 to 24, then 25 to 29, then 30 to 35. So it's divided in that bracket. And every age group, there is a kind of a roll down in terms of the awards and in terms of the slot. So in every age group, the top three get an award for finishing the best times. And they also get 1 or 2 slots per age group for the World Championship. And in a year, there is only one World Championship for each distance. So Ironman 70.3 has one World Championship, and the full Ironman has a World Championship on its own.
Right.
Yeah. And so you qualify for these, and you go over there, and you can represent your country for the race. But the kind of field you get in a World Championship is a totally different field where you meet people across the world, and they're actually pretty good at these sports. So yeah, so that was something that even I had an experience when I went for my World Championship. That was last year in Finland, and I got my slot in Vietnam. That was my first half Iron or Ironman 70.3 ever. And that's where I qualified for the World Championship, and I went for the race. But yes, the kind of field that comes out there is pretty intense, even the age group field. And there's also this professional side of it. That is the group of triathletes who actually race, and they have the ability to get to the podium, and there's a prize money allocated to that. So yeah, they're completely professionals into triathlons or long distance triathlons. So that is another category. And yeah, as I said, we don't really have professionals from India yet. In Asia, there are a few of them, but mostly around the other countries.
So first, let me congratulate you on, the Ironman World Championships, right? And your Ironman journey in general, because I mean, great thinking and great pivoting,
Right.
getting into triathletics and then the Ironman, but also it's so clearly it's not easy. Like Ironman is one thing. If there's one athletic event in the world that's known because of how difficult it is,
Right.
it's Ironman.
Yeah.
Right. And then to secure a podium in your Ironman 70.3, go for the World Championships in Vietnam, right? Great feat, right? And you're now aiming for the next level. But so from what I understand, from what we've talked about also, the ecosystem in India doesn't quite support that, right?
Not really. If you say like when you want to go cycling, kind of roads that are available, it's not very friendly. So only in Bangalore and maybe in Pune is where a lot of cyclists or triathletes like ride outside. And that too if you're staying outside the city. So if you're staying on the airport road or like close to, Devanhalli or, where you have access to flat straight roads, then you can go out. But if you see Delhi and Mumbai and a lot of other places, nobody really rides out. They ride outdoors, they ride indoors. When you see the other countries, when I went to Europe, there is a separate cycling lane allocated.
Yes.
So that's there throughout the country. So in that case, you're more welcome to do this sport or take up cycling and take up any sport. And even in terms of like the availability of open waters, so we don't really have a lake that is close by for us. And even if it's available, Bangalore is a city of lakes, but they're not very clean. So they're not swimmable, or even you cannot consume the water from it. So things like that really,
really
hamper in terms of training. And the main thing that I've realized when I traveled across the world, right? So the main thing that's required for any sport is the culture and the community. So if you see a lot of Nepalis, they're more into climbing and mountaineering because that's the culture they've developed. If you see a lot of Africans, they are into running. So that's the kind of culture community, but they may not really get into triathlons because cycles are expensive. So if you see, there are barely any Africans in triathlons, but they're extremely good runners, and running is one of the disciplines in triathlon. So very rarely you'll see Africans enter. But compared to other countries in the US and Europe, it's really picking up well, but because they have the kind of culture for the sport, and even in terms of cycling. If you see, Tour de France is very popular with cycling, right? So it's the kind of culture, you can see people doing this, you hear them, and you also want to be a part of it. It's like it just regenerates with people one to another exponentially. So I think that's also something that I wanted to bring in terms of creating the community and the culture. Thing is, all my workouts I do alone. So most of it, 80%. It's hard because these are long workouts. If you have to do 2 hours of running, and it's pretty hard if you have to do cycling. The main reason for it is because your workouts will be different from others. But in a lot of cycling or running related activities, a lot of times you have groups, you can run together, cycle together. But as a triathlete, a lot of your workouts are very distinct based on what your goal is. So it becomes very hard to find someone who's doing something at the same pace and the same workout as you. And as, again, being a girl, it's even more difficult to find another girl who's doing something very similar. So that really, changes. And there was this incident that happened just last week where I was on the Satellite Ring Road and my tire actually got flat. And this was about, and then I walked for almost 1 hour to the airport road back with my cycle in that heat to get a cab, because on that road you don't get cabs, you only get the outstation version, and we usually don't carry our phones because in a tri-suit the phones don't fit. So I didn't have my phone, and I didn't have one piece of equipment that I needed for refitting my puncture, so it did not work, and I had to walk back all alone. And that road is everyone's at a high speed, so no one really stops. So things like that, it can be pretty risky as a girl. Maybe if I were a guy, I would have stopped some truck or stopped somebody and said, hey, just drop me. But as a girl, you don't know if you want to tell them that you don't have a phone, you're alone, and you are a bit more vulnerable than usual. So I don't want to give that signal to someone, so I'd rather just walk. So, and it was on the flyover, so it took me an hour to just get off that flyover. It's a continuous one. So things like that can really detour a lot of people. I was very calm and collected, and I took it as a learning experience. These are things that happen, but it can deflect a lot of other people in the same scenario.
It can, totally.
Yes. So these are the things I've learned. Even when I went to Vietnam, there was a situation where there was this lady who had done a lot of other Ironmans, and she was over there. And it's pretty interesting. When you're in these races, you go for like a recce, or you try out the ocean, you try out riding on those roads before the event. But if you don't have a group, this becomes pretty hard because you're in a new country. The oceans in Vietnam are way different than it's in Goa. So you're not maybe trained for that. The oceans were very rough at that point. It was throwing you back, and it's usually hard to enter through and then swim. But here it was hard to even exit. And she found it extremely hard to do it. And somewhere I had to go and help her out. And it's pretty risky, or it's pretty scary even for me, right? You're entering back the waters over there, and I'm not certified in saving somebody, or I'm not a lifeguard. She did lift her hands, but the lifeguard couldn't really spot her over there. So the main reason that I want to bring from here is, if you had a community, if you had a group, then maybe over there you could have had the whole group. You'll have support. A kayak, you'll have support. People around you can spot you when there's somebody who's known. But if it's just 1 or 2 people over there, it's extremely difficult. And she was ready to pay the hotel to give her some kind of support, but no one's going to do it last minute. It has to be pre-prepped. So things work very differently when you're traveling and racing. And again, as a girl, you have to find somebody, or just sharing accommodations. There are so many of these things. There's also this whole story of the menstrual cycle that comes into play in terms of your moods, in terms of racing, because it's hard to even walk for an hour sometime for some people to do it. But what if that kind of coincides with your race?
With your race.
So it has happened for me 2 times, like last year, like both my races, important races, I had my cycle. So it's pretty interesting and it's pretty tough, because physically is one thing and mentally is another thing, because you're a little bit confused, or at least with me, that's what happens. I'm not very, very clear or crisp with my movements at that point. And it kind of reflects with the race. On a daily basis, yeah, it's not,
it's not a big deal.
It's
but
not
on
a big
race
deal. Yeah.
day, you need to be peak performance.
Exactly. And you want to do everything very to the T, right? So in that case, it does get to you. But yeah, with time, I think with experience, you kind of build through it, and you learn through it. And that's why a lot of people, like, I think, churn with time when you have all these experiences once, twice, and things get really tough and challenging. And yeah,
it would take quite a bit of
Yes.
mental resilience.
Yes, exactly. Not just to finish the race, but there's so much around it.
The whole
Yes,
thing, the
yes.
whole thing without any community.
Yes, exactly.
Is what makes it that much
Yes,
tougher.
exactly.
Right? Like all of these challenges, all the challenges with the menstrual cycle, or even flat tire on a long hot day, all of these challenges would not seem that big if you were with a group.
Yes,
right. But
it's always better that way. But
yeah, it's always tougher for the people who start out, right? The pioneers, the ones who are trying to build something new.
Yes,
you always have it tougher.
Right.
So that people later on can have it
easier.
And then you can tell them, oh, we had it tougher. Not that you would, but yeah, no, thanks for giving that perspective, because couldn't have thought about it, that way. That when you think triathlon, you think Ironman, it's tough. It's right up there as one of the toughest sports that exists, right? Of course, it's challenging. But you think tough prep, hard work, long hours, right? You don't think about these other things that make it even tougher. You don't think about how it'll be tougher to be a female triathlete, right? So yeah, thanks.
And it's all of that, because when you say I'm doing an Ironman, everyone resonates with, okay, these are the distances, that's what they've done. But actually, you've done, the race probably is the easiest part of the entire concept, because there is so many things in terms of your flights, your bike bags. Like traveling with your cycle is a whole new story in terms of the resources, because it is expensive, number one, but everywhere you have to carry your bike. So you have to, when you hire a cab from your airport to the hotel, you need to carry the bike bag, right? So you need to get a bigger car. So everywhere the expense adds. And if you want to go for a few days of exploring after the race, you have to carry your bike bag along with it. So that's quite interesting. So it's like having a baby along with you, but a big one.
A big one.
Yeah. So it's a lot of things logistically that actually makes it more difficult. And if you're not a person who's capable of figuring it out on the go, there's a lot of things, again, internationally, you don't maybe have the SIM card. The things are different. For example, in Europe, the hotel we checked in didn't have any people. So it's basically you just enter with number codes, and you enter the room with number codes, and you exit. So that's it. And everything is online. And we hadn't taken a SIM card. So when we went there, the number code did not work. And so you're a bit lost. So we spoke to some Bangladeshi person we found on the road, and we were like, okay, we contacted the customer care and we got that fixed. But you should have the ability to figure out
navigate
and
these things.
Exactly. And you can't panic, and you can't
panic.
Yes. And you're going for a race. You're not just going for a vacation. So you're going for a purpose. So you need to figure out things, and pretty quickly, so you can get on with the other things that you need to do.
The more important things.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that we need to do before the race. We have to check out the routes, check out the swim routes. We have to collect the bibs, and you have to also rest and recover to be ready for the race. and you have to prepare your mind. And if there are so many things that are hampering, then how can you focus your mind, right?
Yes.
So there were a lot of things. It's a bit easier when we do the Goa race or the Indian race, because there, you
Your
can have your
environment.
people. Yeah, you have your people. They can help you with everything. But it's not the same kind of experience when you go outside, because even having people is an expense. If you want to take your entire family, it's going to be very expensive. Or if you just take one person, then you're limited by resources in all formats. And if you make a mistake, then it means you're going to spend more money in different ways. So, and it's going to cost you with different things. And like one sandwich in Europe is like 1,000 to 2,000 rupees. So simple things like that, right? It's
Yes.
more expensive.
Yes.
And yeah, you can't just like maneuver with things if they go wrong. You have to really optimize on everything.
Yeah. So kind of makes sense why it's not that popular in India.
Yes.
We are not the richest of nations,
Exactly.
right? There aren't that many people who could be resourceful enough to do this.
Exactly. So if you see the kind of demographics of people who do the sport in India, most of them are about 35. Because that's when they get the kind of money, the kind of time, and the kind of maybe a little bit of energy as well to combine all of this and do. Because when you're in your 20s, you have to actively work to make money, right? So if you're spending 5 hours per day on a triathlon, that means you're like not earning for that 5 hours. So either you're highly skilled and you can make money with just 4 to 5 hours or 4 to 8 hours, and you also do the sport. Or if you have to work more than that, then you cannot do it. So there's a high churn rate. There's very, very few people in their 20s who even do the sport. So yeah, I think the finance is one major factor. But even if you can afford that, you don't have the time, and you want to like set your career, because that's important as you go through your 30s, and then there's family and there's a lot of other obligations that will come up. So to make way for that, you just, if you have family, if you have work, and you have triathlons, and if something has to give, it has to be the sport, right? So eventually it goes.
Right. Yeah, that explains a lot. We were talking about how some of India's Ironman winners, not winners, but the ones who finished Ironman or are triathletes, are often entrepreneurs, leaders of organizations. A, because of the skill sets that are transferable, but B, also primarily because of the resources that they have.
Exactly.
Right?
So it's very hard for you to do something at this competitive level if you're working for a firm sometimes, because in India, not everybody understand that, okay, they can do both. Maybe again in the US, they might have fixed hours, 8 hours, and then morning and evening you can train, but that's not the case here. The work culture is different. So it's a normal thing to work for more than 8 to 10 hours. So in that scenario, it becomes very hard to add a sport and say, I'm really doing so well in the sport. But
your employer is not going to cooperate.
Yeah, it's most cases. Some of them are okay with it, but you have to find that combination. So everyone who like speaks to me, they want to find that combination. They're like, okay, how do I make it work? How do I make the sport and my work,
my career work?
Yes.
That is a hard question to answer in India, because we really don't have a 9 to 5. We have a 9 to 9.
Exactly.
We have a 9 to 12.
Yes.
We have a 9 to 12 all days.
Yes.
We have all of that. We really don't have a 9 to 5. And if you add Bangalore traffic to that,
yes,
I don't even know what to call it.
Exactly. So you're like drained mentally, physically. So there's
no scope for Ironman.
Exactly.
That's what you're trying to change.
Exactly. So once you're a little more at the leadership level, then you have the ability to delegate. Then you can like also voice saying, okay, I want to do this. So then it's appreciated to a certain level, saying, hey, you're like the founder, the entrepreneur, the CXO. And a lot of CXOs have taken up Ironmans, to be honest. So they can add this to their
already very incredible, impressive list of achievements. I think it might be one of the things that appeals to them as well, right?
Yes.
But adding Ironman to the list of conquests.
Exactly.
Right.
So to get there, it takes a lot of people time. But after you're 35, if you're getting into it, then the chances of you making it on a professional level goes down. So that's where I had to make a choice. I think I made it like last year. if I want to do the entrepreneurial journey first and then do the athletic part, which obviously is what most people do because they can get the funds and finances once they do this and they're settled a little bit in their firms, and then they can take up the sport. They have the bandwidth for it. And the reverse is a bit tricky, but with terms of age being a big asset, it works better. So then I was like, okay, let me do the athlete part first and then do the entrepreneur first.
side of it.
Yes. But I guess in the last few months, things are going pretty well, and both are going to combine. So that's pretty exciting. And yeah, let's see where that goes.
Yes, let's see where that goes. So let's talk a little bit about that, right? There is something that you plan to do, right, which will combine your passions.
Right. So the brand is called Ultra, and I haven't revealed it, I think, as of yet to the public. But so, as I told you, where I traveled across different places and I found that there was a missing element of culture and community. That is one of the important factors that I want to bring in. There's also one important mission that I've always had to inculcate the concept of sport as health and fitness objective. So if you see now, if you connect fitness and health, it's mostly connected back to, gym workouts. Or if you want to build in terms of you want to get fitter or you want to lose weight. So it's mostly connected to doing more of gym workouts or maybe a little bit into running, but it's not very sport specific. But if you see, a lot of people would rather go out play badminton for like 2 hours than go out running or just go to the gym for 2 hours, because that's not sustainable after a point. So I want to really bring that approach as well, like sport based fitness. So one sport that I would start with, because always you want to start a brand with a niche concept that really helps. So I want to focus on the brand that I've built credibility on. So that's swim, bike, run. So that's where the ultra picture lays out, where I want to have uh, content firstly that's related to triathlons, where people can just look at it and gain access to good quality content that's not really available out there. Because nowadays, if you want to get access to good content, then you can just connect yourself to a coach, and whatever the coach knows is what you transfer. But yeah, so we want to develop that kind of content. And there was also this episode where we firstly trained with coaches in India, and also know what is the kind of training plans or what is the kind of structure that Indian coaches have. But if you see, most of them are on the completion kind of concept.
Right.
They've themselves just completed races or a race, and they are training you. So how can they train you for competing? Because they themselves haven't done it. So we looked for like good quality coaches who could help us with competing, but we did not find it. And we had this thought process of just going and finding somebody international, and this costs a lot because it's almost about $300 to $350 a month, which not everyone can afford. So we are trying to get that kind of experience. And in the last 1 year, we're trying to get that international experience in terms of coaching, in terms of training, and now we're trying to put all of that together. And there will be a lot of people who are entering the sport, so helping them in terms of content, in terms of coaching and training plans, in terms of other elements that I recently talked about, the travel, the logistics, and also other different areas. For example, the medical side of things, the nutrition side of things, psychology side of things. So if we can bridge all that together and have everything that's required for triathletes in one place, that one-stop place, and also bring in the concept of brands and partners. Because when I started out, people said no one's going to sponsor you for the sport, right? But I know that sponsors are coming in, and they will as I build my performance. So I have a touch base with a lot of people who have worked with me, collaborated with me, a lot of brands. So we'll bring them as well on board and create like a place where people can access high quality as resources for the sport, and slowly maybe for the individual disciplines like swimming, cycling, running. And that's the outline that we want to bring in. And there are fragmented coaches across India who have tried to bring something on a similar aspect, but it's still quite fragmented, and they are doing it on an individual level. But we want to build like a bigger a brand out.
You want to build
For
something that
this.
provides a 360
Yes,
degree.
exactly. A more structured, more organized, better executed brand that can cater to everything that a triathlete needs, and so that they can just focus on their race on the race day, and everything else is really taken care of. And that will really help build their performance and the aspects that they are looking for, because their focus, their mental energy and physical energy is for the sport only. So we want to bring that. And a lot of people are not getting access to the sport as such, because the coaching here provided by individual coaches are also quite expensive. So because it's 3 sports in one, and not many people are able to provide that. So we want to also have one tier which is operated at a very minimal rate, and more people can get access to this. So they start just entering the sport and they try out the sport and probably start racing. But again, there's a lot of expenditure when it comes to travel and logistics that you pay. Like if you don't know exactly how to get a visa for a sport race, we actually got a sport visa for Europe. But a lot of people think that, oh, you're not a professional sports person, so you cannot get a sports visa, right? So things like that. So since we have the experience, we've traveled across, we can help them in different ways so that they're not wasting money in different areas to different people, and just have a very hassle-free solution. So it's really thought about, because I really enjoy the sport. It's given me so much. And initially, I was always looking at building myself first. And that was important to me, because most athletes are about themselves first. So it took me some time to, transition from, just being a high performance athlete myself to actually wanting to give back to the sport and the community.
Right.
Yes, because that's a switch that needs, because a lot of times if you're self-prioritizing, it's hard to prioritize the others' needs. So now that we're starting out, there could be a little bit of conflict, but we want to do it based on a lot of calls. I've recently had a lot of consultation calls that I took up with respect to my a little bit bandwidth that I had. And I figured that, people really want to, and a lot of people actually attended that calls because they thought I'm going to coach, and they were looking for a coach, and they were really disappointed that I was not doing it at that point.
Wow.
But yeah, I've always been recommending people, different athletes, different coaches, different brands, different products. And then I think it was high time that maybe I created something more structured and organized, and we have that for people to just utilize, and we can build that kind of culture and community is through the next decade or so. And hopefully we can get some really good athletes who can perform at a high class level, maybe get a slot to the Olympics or beyond, or even get to a professional level. So building that whole base, not just for myself but for everybody involved, is the idea behind this.
It's a great idea. Clearly a lot of thought has gone into it, which comes from your own experience and also very intelligent understanding of the Indian triathlete ecosystem, right? Clearly there's a requirement for it if people are approaching you for coaching and getting disappointed that you're not coaching. Right. So there is a requirement, there's a niche, and you are very uniquely qualified to be catering to it. Right? Because of all the different experiences that have led you to this specific point.
Yes. Yeah, it's all like, direction me, and I found the sport as one of my, as a calling for me. And then, I think with time, it was highly something that I pick up with time. So even here, I might not be like actually coaching. I'll be catering to everything around it. And I have people who are specialists in individual fields who will be working along with us and, providing the right things. But yeah, you need somebody who can like,
you'll be the people who will be creating the
Yes.
ecosystem.
Yes.
Right. Such an important job to be doing. Like, you will be pioneering the ecosystem in India, right? Because it doesn't exist as of today.
Exactly. Now it's there, it's a bit fragmented, and then it's growing, but then it really needs that push. And I think when people build these things, it really gives that push, and slowly we should hope that people really pick up. Because what we've seen is that Indians are really hardworking a lot. If you go across Europe, people are a little more laid back. They work for 8 hours, Saturdays off, Sundays off. And even in the US, if you see, the Indians are the ones who work a lot. So we have that kind of work ethic and to go all and out. But if we don't have the right direction and the kind of work ethic, if we don't have the right direction and, the kind of culture and community, then it becomes
work ethic
hard.
Alone won't be able to
Exactly. You can push as much alone, but it's even tougher.
Yes, yes. Wow. So okay, this is a question I wanted to ask in the beginning, but this is the right point to ask. How are you managing to do all of these things? Because it's you are you're launching this amazing initiative which is so needed but obviously would take up so much of your time. You are somebody who's aspiring to be a professional athlete yourself, who puts in so much of her time into that as well, building your own self, your own career in this direction, then building this, building ultra, building this community, and then you're also a model, an influencer. So how does all of this work? Where do you have 48-hour days? Like, how is
No.
this working? I need tips.
It's funny because I actually sleep for 9 hours minimum per day. So it really helps me with, just getting back and working with 2x the kind of effort. And I'm not a quantity person, I'm a quality person, which I've figured out. So I'd rather invest 4 hours of quality work and get good output and good quality outcome from it than just do 8 to 10 hours of, pretty slacked effort. And this was also one of the reasons where I've tried to be as strategic as possible in terms of my work life, because you need to have pieces that fall complementing each other. Because so I was having a marketing firm before this. So after the whole corporate venture, I explored a lot of different areas. I tried modeling. I've done shoots for many brands, Healthify Me, Aether, Hero Electro, a lot of good brands. And then so I established my own marketing agency because I knew I had a creative flair in me and I could write very naturally and
You
all
have
of
a
that.
blog?
Yeah, so I have my own blog and all of that. So established this agency where we worked on marketing, we worked on events, we worked on branding, and the whole concept of digital marketing, social media marketing, influencer marketing, and all of that. So that was something that I really picked up and liked. But obviously, because I had set it up, there was a concept of me having to go out and pitch to clients, which is a bit of conflicting element. So this year, but it worked out very well for me in terms of the financial aspects, way better than my corporate life of working, because the concept of flexibility with time, where I could schedule when I want to do a specific thing, really helps when you have your own venture. But with time, I realized, okay, so in this period of Feb to May, I was like, okay, so maybe if I really want to push on my professional levels of my sport, and maybe getting like a day job where I'm working with a stable income and stable job, if I can get something for like 8 hours and then also do my sport, it might work out. So I thought about it. I thought I'll just give it a few months and see if that is something that is ideal. So I got really good offers in terms of work, which were really good. One of them was in a rocket company, and many other good offers. And with time, but also this whole concept happened when I was taking consultation calls and all of that. So it was like either this or take up ultra, like build that triathlon base, which I hadn't planned. I always wanted to build something for triathlon, but it was like maybe 3-4 years later when I have set up myself very well in the sport and at a very elite level. But so with time, I realized maybe that is not the right thing, because I might not give my heart and soul into a day job if I'm just doing it for the sake of just funding the sport, right? It might not really work out. With time, I'm going to like liberate from it. So then I think a lot of pieces just fell together, a lot of incidents happened, and I had no choice but, okay, let's do this brand, was what happened. And I think it's for the benefit of everybody involved. I'm sure a lot of people, even if it's one person, is benefited by this brand or what we're trying to create. I think it's a success story in itself.
It definitely is. Clearly, the universe is directing you towards it.
It's
So,
just I couldn't do
yes,
much about it, so I was like, okay,
had to
that's the thing.
happen.
Yeah, it had to happen. So I took it up, and now we're like full-fledged in the last 2 months, and it's going great. I've learned a lot of things. I love the whole entrepreneurial culture of things, because you get to try out a lot of different things. You learn on the go and you build a lot. Because even during my college, we had started out a venture called Alohomora. It was into corporate gifting. So we were doing really well. That's when I picked up my flair for marketing and branding and all of that, because I designed the whole branding and marketing for the whole thing. So I learned a lot in that journey, more than my 1.5 years at Deloitte.
Right.
So
Not surprised.
yeah, so I just go do it, execute it, and learn from things is, I think, my way of doing things. And yeah, that really helps me learn, grow, and probably with time I'm able to deliver something of high quality to the world.
I don't doubt that at all.
Yes.
And also, Alohomora is from Harry Potter.
Yes.
Are you a Potter nerd?
Not really, but the name just worked for the brand. Yes.
Well, makes me happy because I am a Potter nerd.
Okay.
So yeah. Just completely sidetracking from the main conversation onto that one. But yes, no, I have absolutely no doubt that Ultra is going to do great things for the triathlete community and ecosystem in India, because you've clearly put a lot of care and thought into it, and
Yes.
And you were already working with brands.
Yeah, this
And
was not
trying to do
created. So usually you create a product and then you see the market fit and you sell it out. So that's how you do. You design the go-to-market strategy and you go out. So that's what you do with brands. But here it was not that way. It was the reverse. I figured what are the problems or the pain points with people, and I had to finally create something that will solve this. So it was the reverse thing. So usually in this case, when you actually deliver something that people are actually seeking, that's when the probabilities of it actually working is going to be higher.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm very, very confident on this to be something that's going to work.
Yes, and you have all our best wishes for that.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. From Ultra, and now Ultra is your baby, right? And you've put so much of yourself into Ultra. How does that at all impact your own training for triathlons? Because that has got to be grueling. And on that front, let's get into what exactly it is, because it's not just about the training, that's a huge part of it. But then there's also the recovery, which is like no other sport from what I've understood, because of how intense Ironman tends to be. The recovery has to be something unlike any other sport.
Right. So in terms of training, I think we have a structured training plan that our coach gives. Every week he updates the training plans on an app called Training Peaks. So we kind of follow it. It's about 1 to 3 sessions a day, typically 2 sessions, and it's 7 days a week. So we have these training plans across, and we also have, so we've kind of structured everything to work really well, like in terms of doing things. For example, I don't do anything that's not something that I have to do. For example, if I have to go into the city to get something, I have someone, I just outsource it and they do all of that and come back to me. So I only put myself to where I'm actually required. One is training, one is actually the work. So everything is streamlined according to it. And I also meet people mostly during events, or if it's something specific for work, only then. And with family, I have a specific Sunday where it's like mostly family time. So it's all like very structured, and we do exactly the same thing every single day in terms of the day. Like we do wake up, we have the same routine, the morning routine, then we have the training, then I have my breakfast, then it's like work, then lunch, a nap, and then there's the other training session, then work, then we have our food, again a bit of work, and then night routine and sleep. So it's typically this across the year. And there is obviously variations in terms of what training you're doing. You can be swimming or running or cycling, but most typically the day is the same. The breakfast is almost similar. And then we make sure the food, the nutrition that goes in is also pretty good. Most of the time I eat home food. So just making sure that you're just training consistently over time is what really adds value. It's not like you're doing 4 amazing sessions and then you take a week off. So that never really works. So it's actually consistent. Yeah, it has to be consistent over years and years, and that's when you see results. So yeah, so just putting in days of effort, just eating right and sleeping well. I think that's one of the most important things. Getting back, rejuvenating, and taking breaks. Because before I was like a hustler, I am a go-getter. I would put 12 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours. It doesn't matter for me the time. So I would put myself all in, and obviously the sleep and the everything else would get affected. But now I know that I need to take breaks to make sure that my work is of high quality and I can actually put in my entire mental energy. So training is there, we take breaks, it's all structured and it's nicely put. So when I'm working, I'm 100% working and there's nothing that comes into my way. And I'm like having that concept of deep focus. So it really helps to deliver, maybe even if it's 4 hours of quality work, that can do better than 12 hours of, rubbish work. So just smart way of doing things and delivering output. I think that's how it is. So strategically planning everything around your life and doing things. And I've added everything I've wanted, right? I like food, I like to travel, I like to keep myself fit, good, look good. I like to, keep myself always learning and curious and also do my entrepreneurial stuff. So I've created everything I wanted in that same net. So I'm happy. And if you're happy,
you don't get bored.
Yeah, you're excited. Every day I wake up, I'm so excited about all the things I get to do. Okay, in 2 weeks I'm leaving to France. I'm so excited. Like it's so
That's
much
amazing.
fun. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Like you see the movies and you're like ZNMD and Spain road trip and all of that, right? So these are things that you're like so excited about, and it's happening for me. And it's all knitted. It's not like I'm just going there and wasting my time or like wasting money, right? Going there for a purpose.
There's an objective.
Yes, and I'm getting the complementary benefits from the sport. So
wow.
So all of this is like well curated, and I think it's a sustainable curation. Like you have good recovery. Like if you sleep is the best form of recovery. Just 8 to 10 hours of sleep is one of the best ways to recover. You can do a lot of other things: ice baths, massage guns. A lot of marketed items are there for recovery, but the best recovery is just sleeping. Yeah, and you can really feel it when you've trained really hard. You go back and get that nap, and you're just all the way back for your next day and next session. And I think that's also the reason I've sustained over time, because I'm one of the, like, I did participated in 4 half Ironman races in 1 year. And with time, I've improved my timings. And so to be able to do things at that scale, I think it's important to be able to get back and recover. And, in just 2 months or 3 months, or maybe in just a month, you have the next race. So you need to be back on your feet and doing things, because a lot of times, even after doing a 10K, you cannot walk, or you're a bit cramped up. So imagine you've done a 6-hour race. The first race I did, I was like limpy a little bit. It's pretty tough. So you can put your body through a lot of rigorous efforts. So I think just being conscious about what you eat, what you are hydrating yourself, and also like just sleeping is something that's really important. And I don't feel about things about the ingredients. I'm very conscious about what ingredients, food, like in terms of fruits, veggies, what goes inside, in terms of even small things like chili powder, coriander powder, home ground. Those are a lot of things that I'm very conscious about, because when you're consuming things, you've got to be really conscious what goes into your body. And that's something that I figured when I traveled. In Europe, a lot of the ingredients are extremely high quality, even the base ingredients. So the food is like really good. But here we get a lot of products. A lot of them are adulterated, and a lot of chemicals go into our body. So with time, that's going to affect you. And even in terms of air. So the air is so different. It's so polluted. So yeah, so there are a lot of things that we're learning, and maybe there will be time we might try to spend time in places where the air is better and all of that. So we're trying to figure out what really works. And if you're consuming water and consuming air and consuming food, so being a bit more conscious about these things, very basic. You don't have to get into the fundamentals or like even the nuanced details of magnesium, or like a lot of the things, right? I mean, I do that for a supplementation. I have a protocol for it. But even if you don't go to that level of nuance, you don't have to know all these things. But just understanding what comes from, how you're consuming it, and how you are sensitive. Like I know that if I eat in a specific set of restaurants, nothing happens to my body. Another set of restaurants, I know it affects me because my gut is more sensitive. It reacts more. So it's not like a problem. It's actually like a good thing.
That you know.
Yeah, that you know.
That you're aware.
Yes, you're aware. Because most of the times, if you're not doing high activities, with time, even though it's hard for your gut to digest, it just digests. Like it has the kind of bandwidth. Here it doesn't have the kind of bandwidth in our times because you're pushing your body through a lot of physical stress, right? So not all the functions, like the muscles have to work, the digestive system has to work, sometimes your hormonal systems have to work. So there are a lot of systems, so they can't work. So when they work all of them together, then there's a lot of stress that goes into it. So something has to give. So it's usually the digestive. So a lot of so a lot of athletes have GI issues, gastro issues that they face. So they, with time, you're like, okay, no, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. So they develop that instinct.
Right. You learn to how to take care of your.
Yeah.
Right.
So it really helps you overall in terms of health. You get an understanding of what you need to do with health, because a lot of times you can know that, okay, maybe doing an Ironman is not the best for your health because you're pushing yourself through so much stress. But would it be comparable to maybe smoking, which is so common? No, because smoking is way more hazardous. So if you see things that way, then
that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got to see what is good for your health versus what is actually even more harmful.
Even more harmful. Yeah. Clearly you need 9 hours of sleep. There's a lot going on there. Right. Wow. Okay. You put in so much work, right? Time, money, right? Because this is an expensive endeavor, right? Into your coaching, your career. So, what are some milestones that you're proud of, and that you would like to share that inspire others to who are looking at becoming triathletes?
Right. I think my first race itself, just completing my first Ironman 70.3, was a milestone in itself. And it was in the city of Vietnam, and that's a city that my dad really loves. Oh, wow. So it was a bit funny because I lost my dad just a couple of months before that. Yeah, so that was a race that was like a tribute for him, and I really wanted to do it in that city and just being able to finish it, because it had 21.1 kilometers of run in it, but I had never done a half marathon on that distance ever before. So the first time I was doing that distance was on the race itself. So I was never sure that can I finish it or can I do this. So I went ahead and finished it. So that itself was one of the biggest milestones.
Big milestone.
And my mom was there for the race. She came to Vietnam. So that was really nice of her, because even I think she understood the whole vibe that I was having. And I also got the slot for the World Championship. So that was
extra
amazing.
special.
Yeah, that was extra special, like a cherry on the cake, you could say. So that was really nice. And also going to Europe after that, I think was really good. That was the first time I went to Europe. And we had a lot of minor incidents, like first time our visa got rejected and we reapplied and all of that. And we got it just 2 weeks before actually flying. So that was quite intense. So we were just so happy that we get to go there. And though I couldn't complete that race in Europe, but irrespective, that experience really changed the way we approach the sport. That's when we transitioned to an international coach. That's when we brought a new kind of approach to the whole thing and try to bring in some strategy to change the whole game plan. And it really helped us to see where we are and where we need to get to, and how to connect those two paths.
It's a huge learning.
Yeah, it was a huge learning in terms of that. And the cultures, the whole concept is something we really picked up. And then I did my PB, that's my personal best in Ironman. That was in Bahrain. It was about 5 hours and 53 minutes for the distance. Wow. So that was the first time I crossed.
Give us some perspective, like what is the cutoff and versus your timings?
So the cutoff is a bit farther from there. It's about 8.5 hours. And I took about 5 hours, 53 minutes to finish this race. So there are also individual cutoffs, swim, bike, and run. And the final cutoff is like 8.5. So obviously, if you're aiming towards completing the race, you're looking at the cutoffs. But if you're aiming to compete in these races, you're trying to, minimize
it as much as possible.
Yeah. So that's why we even, increase the probabilities of doing well by increasing the number of races. Because just having to do 4 of these races is a lot of expense, is a lot of travel, logistics, and a lot of things, right? So, but So we wanted to increase our chances of doing well. So that means you try taking more chances. So even that's why in this year we're having 4 races, and we'll probably try to do the best in all those races.
Best wishes to you for all of those races.
Yes. So those are the milestones. And one more important one was even the short distance when I won the bronze in the nationals. That was really nice.
Yeah.
And just every day, I think, has been a milestone on its own, because it's pretty tough every single day, because on the race day, there's a lot of adrenaline that really gets you going. You're excited, all pumped up for the race, and you're getting to hit the start and the finish line. There's photographers, there's a lot of things going on. But on the training day, you don't have any of this, but you're still expected to do as grueling of an effort, and you're doing time trials, you're doing intervals, or you're doing even a small, long effort. So all of that requires consistency on a day-to-day basis, and you have to be motivated and stay focused. So just finishing every day, especially if it's a bad day, then things don't go your way. Just finishing those days and finishing all the workouts and trying to keep up the mood itself is a milestone, in itself. So that's how I think I would look at it. The bigger achievements are more fun for social media, for everybody else, but I think I look at everything.
They kind of keep you going also, that all your prep is leading to these great results.
It helps to have some kind of direction, and there's some frenzy into it. But I like to, not get too overwhelmed with my wins or to get too depressed with my losses. Try to keep a pretty balance over there, and try to just take every day at the best I can, and just keep myself happy and engaged and excited, basically.
Yeah, I can see how that would take a lot of mental resilience. And I can see why your mom is absolutely correct about respecting sports people.
Yes.
Right? Because something like this would build so much character that you would not be able to build otherwise in different professions. You'll of course you'll learn different things, but this kind of growth, because you have to constantly push yourself. And when you're doing other things, you don't really get to push yourself this way.
Exactly.
Right?
And things can go wrong and life can happen. Like on the day when my dad passed away, I still did my session. So things like that. I think you've heard different stories where people go on, still do their tournaments or play their matches, even when things have happened. And those are like extremely tough moments, especially like for me, I was very, very attached to my dad. So it was extremely hard for the next one year, like just, managing everything. And there were a lot of things that affected us financially. And in that situation, actually making that decision, okay, I want to do the sport and I will stick on to it, is very tough, because it's very easy to just go back to maybe doing a job and something that works a little better at that point, and trying to figure out when things are better. But holding on to things when things are not really going your way is very difficult. And on a day-to-day basis, doing it out and back every single day is so tough. So I think that's the story that is lost, because you don't really capture that. But so that's what really creates. And the hidden story is what matters.
I'm sure your dad is proud.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah. No, and the city in Vietnam where you competed, Da Nang, that's his favorite city?
Yeah. It's not his favorite city. Vietnam is something he loves.
He loves.
But funny part there is Da Nang, the airport is called DAD, the abbreviation.
Really?
Yes.
Then,
wow.
So
the abbreviation is DAD, and it's very...
it's just, again, meant to be, wasn't
exactly.
it? Yes.
So, and he was one of a very instrumental part of my sporting journey, because he would drop me every day and pick me up every day from tennis for about 5-6 years when I was a kid. So one session or 2 sessions a day, and again drop me to school. So there was like a lot of these things, and he was very instrumental. Obviously, my mom was also very important in this aspect, but I was a daddy's girl, I think, the whole time. And with time, I think recently I've developed a better rapport with my mom, who's always been very, very strict. And, I would hear a no most often, like 90%, anything I ask would be a no from my mom. My dad's a bit more nicer, and he would
indulge you a bit.
Yeah, a bit. So, and you build that kind of rapport. So I was always a daddy's girl. So it was one thing that I really wanted to do for him. So that race was, something
Yes,
important.
absolutely. And if anybody wants to read about your races, they should. Are you still writing? Is the blog up and active?
Yeah, it's on my website. So I have a website,
Right.
aishwaryajagadish.com.
So we'll link
yeah.
that in the description
Yes.
box, because clearly that's something you enjoy doing, and it's fun to read about your experiences.
Right. I actually write it for people to not just read, but they also learn a lot, because it's hard to, if you're just doing one race, you want to know how to do it. So it's good to learn from someone's experience and their mistakes. So that
Absolutely.
less expensive
Yes.
also.
Less
So,
expensive also. Yes, very, very important for everybody listening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's a sport which
Absolutely.
is a lot of money. Like just a trip for us to Europe was about 8 to 10 lakhs for 2 people. So
Wow.
that's a lot of money for 2 weeks.
I understand that was another reason why you. So it was the latte Ironman, right? Where
Right.
you had an unfortunate mishap and couldn't complete.
Right.
But then that's where you also decided to not pursue the next year's World Championship, because you wanted to come back more prepared, and that would have taken.
Right.
That would be more financially expensive as well.
Got it.
Right.
So the reason I couldn't complete the race was actually very accidental. There was
Yes,
a tube on
yes,
the road and I
yes.
had a fall. But the overall experience in that situation of going to the world champs, I wanted that experience. And we realized that even if you're at the top of the country in India, you still are very much way below in the world's level. So we want to go back with more preparations, and it's also a little more expensive to go to the world champs, because firstly the registrations double the cost, everything around it, the accommodation, the travel is all hiked up. So in that way, it's better to prep yourself and be in a place where you're able to compete than just go there, because just having a finisher title, I think, that's not
That's
the
not
aim.
your goal.
Yeah, that's not my goal.
Yes.
So this, it's not the bragging rights that I'm looking for, just progressing and performing very well. So that's the decision we made. So we're not really going there this year, but never know when we'll take it up again.
I'm sure we'll see you there soon.
Yes.
And it's what you're trying to do is create a community of champions, and that's a very, very worthy goal. So apart from what you're trying to do, what it is that you think India should be doing as a whole to create this community of champions, right? And where do you see triathlete community and ecosystem going in India over the next few years, however far you can gauge it?
Got it. I think it really helps to just start with the roads and the infrastructure. I think that's what we are lacking, and it's very unsafe for us to just take our cycles and go out on the roads. So something in that direction is something that could really help everyone who wants to indulge in sport, and also just supporting different initiatives around maybe bringing up initiatives for kids for sport, and bringing up some initiatives with respect to athletes, where they can really get that support to do these sports, because a lot of athletes don't really have a skill beyond their sport that they can monetize to use for the sport. At least I'm lucky, because I have other skills which I can use for the generate some funds and then use it for building the sport. But most people don't have that, and with time they're like a little bit lost. So I think the system of sponsorship, some kind of support from the government would really help.
Yes.
But that being said, even the federation itself has a low amount of funds, the Indian Triathlon Federation, and that would lead to poor races being organized and safety issues and more so. So there are a lot of things that can be solved, but I think it will take time. So just taking one step at a time, and
yes, doing your best, taking one step at a time, as you are doing. Yes, I think it's the individuals who will bring about the change at least in case of triathlons in India.
Exactly. So that's what I would want to do, because if I'm able to either perform or get someone to perform, or have this system, have the platform to generate the revenue, fund a few athletes or kids in the sport and take them to the next level. So then I think when they can see some ROI from the sport, then they're more likely to invest, because this is where badminton was a couple of years before a few important people came in and invested in the
Changed the
sport and
landscape.
changed the landscape, right?
Yes.
So
That's largely what happens in India.
Exactly.
In most sports, right?
Exactly. So you need that
Yes.
change of momentum to really shift gears, and for the other stakeholders to take in some light of what's happening and invest in it.
I have no doubts that you will bring about that momentum with your clarity of thought, your purpose, your dedication, right? This is going to be a great podcast,
Right.
but you're going to go on and do so much greater.
Yes, it's only been
great
the beginning,
things.
is what I always
Yes,
feel.
absolutely
So just
the
getting
beginning.
started.
Absolutely the beginning. And sometime down the line, we'll love to have you back and see where life has taken you and what other great things you've done. Until then, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure just speaking to you, and love the conversations that we had.
Absolutely loved it. Thank you so much, Aishwarya. Thank you for coming to the Momcast. I say this every time we do a podcast, that today's podcast is a special one. But today's podcast is a special one in a special way. If you take away anything from today's podcast, I hope that it is the mental makeup of our guest. Her authenticity, her self-belief, her self-awareness, the way she proudly owns not just her failures, but also her successes, is something that is incredibly hard for both men and women. It is a superpower. And if you are to take anything away from this video, it should be that. Please share this video with as many people as you can so that they can all learn about this superpower. And before you go, please subscribe to our channel. Subscribing is free for you, but it lets us create more content for you. So please subscribe, please like and share this video, and I will see you in the next podcast.